Hi, I'm Tom at Just One Pack, and this is AC on the Short Alpha Clash podcast, where I talk all things Alpha Clash on my way to work. And today I want to talk about the discontinuation of the Clash kit. Let's dig into that. Before I do, though, I'm testing out a new recording system, so hopefully the audio on these will be just slightly better than what I usually make. So let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if you like it. So let's dig in. So Rising Empire Studio announced, along with their big going indie article and push, that the Clash kits would disappear and be replaced by something else. The last part was sort of a given to me, at least, but what the replacement will be kind of triggered me. So that made me go back and look at what Clash kits, what role do they play, and what could be in, what hints do we have at what's going on. So this boils down to two things I think will be in the Clash kits, or whatever, let's call them, will be in the new Clash kits, right? The new introductory products, and a few hopes what will be in the introductory product. So let's dig into that. First off, one of the things about introductory products is that they should match match and reflect the way people are introduced to the game, right? So most games are introduced by a friend or at a play store or a game store, or a play group, something like that. There is an introduction. Someone is teaching you how to play the game, right? Very big games such as Magic and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, stuff like that, or really big brands such as Star Wars Unlimited, can get away with being present in common retail, in supermarkets, right, where you sort of buy them as an impulse buy. Think that looks funny. Let's have a look at that. That when the trademark gets big enough, you can be there and you can get that. And in those cases, I don't think the teach is a person-to-person teach. Then you need something else to do that. But what is also in common for these is that all of them are doing two-player kits, right? So the two-player kits from Magic, which, by the way, is only their very, very first introductory set to Standard, is that's a two-player kit. Pokemon does primarily one-player kits, but you can get this arena where it's almost like a board game. They get a couple of decks, I think 3. I'm not completely certain about that. And you can sort of get these. I think Yu-Gi-Oh did it for the quick format, not the Yu-Gi-Oh slow, but they had the name eludes me, but they had a two-player kit. So it's on Star Wars Unlimited, as I mentioned, a big name, will have two-player kits. But most games have one-player kits, meaning a single deck in a box. And I think what we will see is that, I'm fairly certain that we will see the move away from two-player boxes to a single-player box, or single deck box, right? A single deck in the box. Well, that was hard. So that move, I think we'll see, and it's making perfect sense, since the way we interact with this is through someone teaching us it, right? We show up, someone is doing a demo, or walk into a meet up with someone or some people who are already playing it and can give us that introduction, right? And then all you need is one deck. So that's the first move of it, I think. The benefit of this is that I don't think the price will be half. The point of that is the price of Clash Kits now is only slightly above what you would pay. I'm not counting Magic here, but what you would pay in most other games for a single deck. So by cutting about a third of the price, you still have a fairly affordable single deck, and that allows you to put more stuff in it to explore, which is really interesting. Now, in terms of what else that can be explored with that extra bit of cash, when we pay just a little bit more for the deck, but really get more value in it in terms of an introductory product, is what I've been sort of talking about a few times before, the idea that there's an introduction to the character, so of the deck, right? So in Alpha Class, that would be the contender you get an introduction to, which it makes perfect sense. Now, Rising Empire Studio and taking on this mantle of being the indie trading card, the indie comic book trading card game, really leans towards that there will be, if not a comic book about the contender in the box, then at least a pamphlet or some sort of comic book introduction to the character in the deck. And the reason this is not on the wish list, but I think this will actually happen, is because they sort of hinted in the PvE Seekers of Forgotten, which is I think the next product coming up, or the next again after the draft box, right? They sort of hinted at that the rule book for PvE will contain a setting of the scene, so to speak, in comic book style, right? So you will get this comic books, a couple of frames, maybe a page, setting the scene for the game, right? And that has already been mentioned for the PvE. And when they do it there, and tells us that they will change the basis of the premise or the product of Clash Kits, that sort of tells me that would be an obvious way to lean into these boxes. So those are the two things I think we will get, going from 2-player kits to a single-player kit and getting an inlay of some sort with an introduction to the character in that deck, right? So we can get in touch with that already. That one thing will be in it. I have a few wishes, and some of this is in line with the production of it, and a single wish for a compact of 2 actually, about the main product, the deck itself, right? So what I think will be in the box is a box. So the thing is, I went back looking at what introductory products I have bought over the years. I bought quite a few for quite a few games, and those who I think of as the best products are often decks that has or games that deliver a little bit more than just a deck, right? So if you buy a Pokemon deck, you get some tokens. They are punch out cardboard, but you still get them. I think you even get a coin in the starter kits there, right? So you get sort of a little bit extra. And I was thinking about way back when I got into Magic, they had the Planeswalker decks. Now, the Planeswalker decks have been ridiculed and discussed much, and seems to have a consensus that that was a bad product. But I don't actually think that the product was bad. There might be a thing with the decks. More on that later, right? But one of the really cool things that that had, and as I explore that, a lot of other games has done that too, is that they came with a deck box. Now you can go deck box only, like the Blitz decks of Flesh and Blood, or the First Strike decks, I think they were called. You can go just that. I think that's a bit too rough. But the idea that you get with your very first introductory product, you get a deck box to put your cards in, is sort of a no-brainer, really. So, excuse me, just need a sip of water. So, having a deck box in there is, for a new player, so important, since you have nowhere else to put your cards, right? So, having that box where you can open up, play the game, and now you don't have to just toss them in your bag. You can put them in a deck box, kind of keeping them a little bit protected, although it's just a cardboard box, right? But having that opportunity is a really is a real benefit for a new player. For established players, it doesn't really mean much. For players that want to be ambassadors and sort of have that going, if you buy a few of these starter kits to get some cards, well, maybe there could be collectibles in it, what I mean. Maybe you have an extra or two of these boxes and you can just give them away, right, for new players. But the point is that there is a real benefit to having them in there and letting players have their decks in a deck box from the very get-go. That also means that there won't be a sort of a gotcha mechanic that, oh, you bought this deck, but you also need to buy this, and you also need to buy this. I know most of us would never dream of playing anywhere else than at home with the cheapest of cards without sleeves, but actually that is how I played most of my Flesh and Blood Blitz decks. No sleeves, just from that box, right? And the good thing about that is not only do you get a box for your cards, you also get a display case for the hero. You continue this introduction and connection with that contender, with that hero, that mindset of your game, right? So you buy a box with a contender you like, and you get a continuous box. That could be the entire box. I'm not saying it has to be a separate box, but the fact that you can reseal it and keep your cards sort of safe is a really benefit. And I hope that they will put that in. The next up is one of the other things that happened with the Planeswalker decks. One of the things that was there that I would hope they would put in these as well. And again, the Blitz deck did this, and I think some of the Pokemon starter kits, starter decks also did that. Introductory decks also do that. Is that they contain an introduction to the specific deck. Now, I'm not saying that there should be a whole rulebook in there, nor even a quick guide. The reason being, as mentioned earlier, you will probably be introduced to the game by someone else that would teach you this. What could be good is a reference guide or a link, to either a short introduction video that is not neither 3 minutes long where you only get an overview, or an hour and a half or however much it is. No one is going to watch that to learn the game, save the most enthusiastic of players, right? A 10-minute introduction to how the game works and all the game pieces, that is good. We don't have that as far as I know, but maybe that's a task that I should take upon myself. But the fact that is that a link or by a QR code or something like that to get to the rules is plenty for this type of product, at least in my opinion. But what I do want in it is some introduction to what this specific deck of cards wants to do, an introduction to the strategy of that, and to the keywords in there, just for that deck, right? So if I got a deck that does collection counters, let's say we got a Haven starter kit of some sort, right? Then an introduction to what collection counters is, and if she has flight, then introduction to flight or safeguard, wherever she has, right? The keywords that and mechanics in the deck, an introduction to that, because that is the deck I am going to play. So I want the heads up on it, what my opponent is playing. Well, the good thing about this is that we could start the game by simply handing over that to our opponent, saying, this is the deck I'm playing. Okay, there are a few mechanics here I didn't know. Let's explore that. Let me read through this and then we can explore this game together, right? So that would be a great introduction to a deck and a great way for a super casual player, a very early adopter, to get into that game, right? So that is what I hope will be there, along with the turn structure, the number of times that you when you're teaching someone, even the second game and third game, and if there's a bit of time in between the two, right? The reference back to the turn structure, what phases comes when, is so important. So having that on there as well would be brilliant. It could just be 2 cards, really. Just an introduction to the specific mechanics of the deck and what the deck wants to do, and a turn order, this reference about what phases comes in what order. Those 2 I really wish were in there. It could be on the back of the inlay with the comics. That would be fine, as long as it is not on the back of a playmat sort of thing. I would love a playmat, but that's not that high on my wish list. Alpha clashes are zone dependent TCG, meaning that there are zones that need to be recognized and kept. So having a zone mat for the player, even if it's just quote unquote paper, is so important. However, it's not the most important product to have. You could just take a marker and mark it on a plain mat, right? So if it's in there, great. If it's not, so be it. Now that leads me to a single tidbit and quite an important one, even though I left it to the very end. So all of this has been about, this might be a long episode because I have opinions on these things. So on an ordinary, no, so all of these things we've mentioned so far, or I mentioned this so far, is about the packaging and the presentation of the product itself, right? It's not actually been the product, because the product in and of itself is the introductory deck, right? And I haven't even mentioned what that means. So, or what that should be. So the product itself is the introductory deck, and I have a few wishes for that. Now, those we have. So there are 2 main things about introductory decks, especially when you come from other games and into one game, into a game. And one of these things is the barrier of entry for a new player, right? It sort of hinges on how complex the game pieces you are handed out is from the very get-go, right? So one of the things about this is that if you get a very complex game, a very complex deck, you use a lot of mental capacity on simply keeping up with what your deck wants to do, meaning you don't grasp or grok what the game is. You have to concentrate on what your deck is doing. You're using a lot of mental resources on that, which takes away some of the enjoyment. I know we are sort of crunchers. We like the mechanics combining and stuff like that, and that is a very important thing to put in a deck, so that player can see that. But having too much complex interactions and too many triggers in a starter kit, in an introductory kit, is, in my opinion, unhealthy. And there has been the best Clash kit right now for introducing the game to new people, right, to new players, is, in my opinion, the Moxie Magnate setup, right? The reason for this is that they are fairly simple mechanically, right? And you can easily take a Magnate deck and, for instance, and win a Clash kit to Clash kit comparison, right? It's not that it's not powerful enough in its own right, in comparison, sorry, to the other Clash kits. They're okay, actually. I know the Clash buffs and stuff like that, but still, they're okay. The Clash kits from the very start is okay power-wise. They're just a lot simpler mechanically. There isn't that many triggers that you need to remember, and not so much time you need to. In the complete other direction is something like Avenging Guy, or in my opinion, to a lesser extent, Paul, but still the newer sets. They just kept adding on more and more complex gameplay. So I wish that they would go back on that a little bit and introduce a simpler, less punishing mechanical setup, allowing for new players to experience the game and not crunching their minds until they can't look straight, right? Just trying to keep up with the mechanics. So having more of an idea on what the decks want to do and see that unfold, and how mechanics work, rather than having to crunch and notice that there were triggers or orders you missed. So simpler gameplay in the starter kit is one of my goals. That doesn't mean unpowerful. They need to be on par with each other, not with the competitive decks, in my opinion, right? So, that I hope they would do that. In that is another sort of wish about the deck, right? So the gameplay needs to be comprehensible for new players, not too complex. But I also, or sort of lean into that, I want pieces that are easily recognizable as replaceable. So one of the things that you want to do with new players, right, is to let them buy one of these starter kits, and then having a chance to upgrade. Now, for me, there are only two types of people. When you buy a starter kit, you either buy it because you want to play that and nothing more, and there are entire tournaments just around starter kit, right? Starter kit tournament is a thing, and it's fun, because you sort of know what you're getting up against, and everyone can join, right? But the other part of this is to upgrade your beginner's kit. Once you start opening packs or winning packs, or either by buying boxes, winning games, or by lottery, you somehow acquire more cards, right? And it would be great if there is an obvious upgrade to these decks. In my opinion, the Clash kits we already had doesn't quite have that. You can sort of hone the strategies a little bit, pick out a few cards that doesn't make sense in what you want to do in that strategy you want to explore in the deck, but a clear upgrade is not there. One of the things, and I think that it might have been, maybe it should have been on my this will be there list, right? But one of the things I think will happen is that will be a thing, that there will be better support for it, because that's the first step of it, right? Clash kits until the last set with Equilibrium has been sort of a side project to the set itself, meaning that the cards and the contenders that was in those decks were not part of the main deck. The contenders were only in the Clash kits, and there were special cards only for the Clash kits, right? And with Equilibrium, that has changed. That means, among other things, that the support for the decks and for the contenders is also in the main set. So if I were to buy a booster box or just boosters of the main set, I could be lucky to pull something that supports that strategy, right? So the upgrade is sort of built into the set. I think that is important for a successful, not as an introductory set, but to lift people out of just playing introductory decks and into starting to spot that they can build their own decks. The whole deck building thing, which is such a unique thing to trading card games. There's a whole game in doing that, right? So that having that built into the starter kit, so you can have an easy switch to the next level of trading card gaming. I think that would be absolutely brilliant to have that as well. Anyway, we're almost at half an hour. I apologize. I hope the sound has at least been tolerable. Yeah, the thing is, the introductory products are such an important part, and in the world of Alpha Class, there are only 2 card game products right now, and not counting on the PvE and these treasure packs. I can't remember what they're called. There are only the introductory kits and the booster packs. There are loads of other products I would wish they had, but I don't know. I think doesn't make sense, and maybe I should do a wish list of that. But introductory sets is so much a cornerstone of getting new players in, because it absolves you from having to build a deck and trying to balance. And that's already been done, right? So anyway, I waffled on for half an hour now, or something close to it. I am going to leave it at that. I'm almost home anyway. Almost to work, sorry. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope if the sound was better, please let me know in the comment. If you think you've spotted something that will be in these new Clash kits / Clash decks, let me know what you think, and we'll have a little friendly competition going on what we think will be in those decks once they're released. My best bet is that they will be released with set 6, so we have to wait until the end of summer at least before we get to see it. And then we get new product, new set, and we get dragons. I'm quite excited about that. Anyway, that's all for me now. Thank you for listening if you have, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.